Please welcome Chief Marketing Officer, Salesforce, Simon Mulcahy.
Welcome, Dreamforce. Welcome, everyone, to day 3 of the most incredible Dreamforce. Did you enjoy U2 last night? Was that not just amazing? Well, hey, I'm sure most of you have all gathered by now what actually is going on here at Dreamforce. This is not a technology conference. This is the most incredible gathering of people who all share the same vision. This is how can you connect with your customers in a whole new way? How can you create the most amazing organizations that are completely focused on the customer? And that's what we're here about. That's what we've been here for the last couple of days. We've got today and tomorrow. But it's also not just for all of you. It is for CEOs of some of the largest organizations in the world. This is the most pressing issue for them too. And that's why we've held this CEO series. We had a session yesterday with some disruptors. And today we've got this incredible session now. And actually later on today, we've got a session with Mary Barra and Marc Benioff as well. But this session in particular, I'm really excited to introduce an incredible panel. And it starts obviously with Marc Benioff, the co-founder and CEO and chairman of Salesforce. He started Salesforce in 1999 in a small apartment in San Francisco. And now, every year, he brings together 170,000 people in a family reunion. Jean-Pascal Tricoire, president and CEO of Schneider Electric, he's really leading the charge on connecting his whole organization from power plant all the way to electricity socket and really driving a customer-centric organization. Bernard J. Tyson, the chairman and CEO of Kaiser Foundation Health Plan and Hospitals, who's one of the true leaders connecting his whole organization with his Thrive plan to really put the patient at the center of everything that Kaiser does. Now, Kim Hammonds is also an incredible leader. She's the COO at Deutsche Bank and part of creating an amazing change going on over there. And Lijinsky, the CEO and founder of 23andMe, is a personal genomics company, and she's connecting customers around their own genomes. That's an incredible panel, and not least, of course, because the moderator is Adam Lashinsky from Fortune, the assistant managing editor at Fortune. He's an incredible commentator on people, but also a great moderator and author. So with that, I'm going to hand you over to our incredible panel. Thank you.
Did we all get introduced today?
Okay, all right. I'm intrigued. Maybe I'll hear it on stage.
All right.
Hey. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
Mark, did you get the Twitter deal done just now in the back there?
Adam, what's the point?
We're here to talk about a whole host of interesting
Adam, I'm
topics.
still recovering from last night. Okay, I got home
I
at
should
like
go
3 in the
easy.
morning.
I should go easy on you.
Yeah.
All right.
You
Well,
go to the concert last night, Adam?
no, I was in bed by 9:30.
We're not going to talk. Actually, we might need a new moderator. How many people went to the concert last night? Oh, wow. All right.
It was a great concert.
Who played last night?
Some band we found from Ireland. Some very mild political theories.
Pretty subtle.
Very subtle. Very subtle.
Well, look, Mark, if you need a little time to rest and gather yourself, I figured we'll work our way down the panel this way.
Perfect.
Starting with Ann, but
Thanks.
I want you to feel free to chime in at any moment that you don't
Okay.
be shy or bashful.
I won't. I'll take your job over if you're not pull it together.
The thought had occurred to me. So, we have about 5 different topics that we might talk about, and I'll just sort of tick through them all.
You should really introduce yourself, since I don't think everybody knows who you are, Adam.
Oh, well, I'm Adam Lashinsky. I'm a writer in San Francisco with Fortune, and we're the sponsor of the Fortune CEO series here at Dreamforce. And
how long have you been with Fortune for?
I've been. I know the answers to all these questions, so this will be very interesting. I've been with Fortune for 15 years here in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. I've covered almost every big company in the Valley, including, from time to time, Salesforce.com.
And you've written for Fortune. You've also done a book or a couple books.
I wrote a book 5 years ago called Inside Apple about Apple. And I'm currently writing a book about a company called Uber.
All right. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
You want us to leave? And
Right. Let's go, right?
Or either backup singer?
So far, you're not singing anything.
It's a good scene.
It's a good scene.
Follows the discussion. Okay, the topics that we're going to attack are how business is changing, in particular from a customer perspective, how technology is changing business, how work is changing, the workforce, employees, how corporate values are changing, and then lastly, what business can do to make the world a better place, improve the world. Choose your cliche on that is a very important topic that we'll get at. And I want to start with Ann Lijinsky, and Ann, you have a particular perspective on the customer from your company, 23andMe's perspective. Would you share that with everyone?
Sure. The perspective we have on customers that we felt like we actually there aren't really customers often in healthcare. In the healthcare system, as many of you have experienced, it's not necessarily the most optimal consumer-friendly experience that you have when you think about other things that you could do versus going to the physician. It's not always customer focused. So one of the core elements of 23andMe was actually thinking about the fact that you, the individual, should actually be the decision maker about how you want to live your life related to your health. So 23andMe is a company that is dedicated to enabling people to get access to their genetic information directly from the company. So you don't have to go through a physician, you don't have to go through a genetic counselor, but you can actually get access to this information on your own. And we are a real believer and a champion for the fact that all of you are quite capable of actually learning about something like genetics. Like anyone could be a scientist, and you're actually quite capable of actually taking care of your health. And some of the analogies I always draw is that if you think back to sort of the communist era, when you have this the government telling you what to do, healthcare today is largely similar to that, I think, in a lot of capacities, where you're sort of told what to do. You're not taught how to actually think. You're taught actually to go to an individual to get the answer for you. And what we're really trying to do is to change that. And I actually have to say, like, part of the pleasure for me of being on a panel with Bernard is I'm a Kaiser baby, and I've been at Kaiser, I'm still at Kaiser. I feel like it was my Kaiser physician who actually specifically taught me how to take care of myself. And we're trying to, like, the 23andMe is trying to actually really get our customers to actually start thinking more and more for themselves and think about what you do every single day is what healthcare is. It's not necessarily just part of, your episodic physician visit, but it's actually what you're doing every day.
And explain in just a little more detail what you do to empower the customer.
Well, consumers can go online. You can order a 23andMe kit online. You spit in a little tube, and we give you back your genetic information. And it can be, today we give things like cystic fibrosis testing. So as many of you who've actually had children, a lot of people are supposed to go and have carrier status testing before you're pregnant, but not everybody does. And one of the things that we're trying to do is put some of these options in the hands of the consumer. So we actually give information back on things like carrier status testing, lactose intolerance. In the past, we had done things like Alzheimer's, some BRCA variants with breast cancer. All of those are not allowed today by the FDA, but we're working to actually get those back in the hands of the consumer in a direct-to-consumer capacity.
And Ann, I know the just deal at a high level with the sort of existential question of, am I truly capable? And what if you give me information that it's either too scary, too complicated for me to process?
So I think one of the assumptions here is, and I think one of the core things that 23andMe is challenging, is that the going to the physician is always the gold standard. And I think that the core element of us is that I am a believer that the average consumer, can actually make a decision on their own with the right information, that you need information that's online, you need a community, potentially you need other support out there, but that having a one-to-one interaction with the physician is not always the gold standard. And I think probably everyone in this room can relate to experience where you go to the doctor sometimes, they write you a script, they do something, they walk out, and you have absolutely no idea what happened. And there was a study that came out that talked about how roughly 50% of individuals are going to a procedure, like some kind of medical intervention, and they don't know why. And so part of what we're trying to do, if people take more ownership, if the customer is actually taking more ownership, they're actually potentially they're gonna ask more questions, they're gonna know what's actually happening, and I think that you'll actually have better outcomes.
So, Kim, I know that you're even less interested in talking about the big issues affecting Deutsche Bank in the world today, as Marc is about talking about buying Twitter this morning. So we're going to give you a pass on that. And instead, I'm going to ask you if you would explain to everybody how the banking world is thinking about customers today.
Yeah. So the whole financial services industry is in massive disruption. So in our industry, there are about 2,500 startup companies that are trying to disrupt kind of elements of the value chain of financial services globally. So at Deutsche Bank, we have 20 million customers. We're processing over $1 trillion, euros, pounds of payments per day. So this is a highly intense, very scalable business. So we run things at massive scale. And so what we're trying to do is we've met over 800 fintech startup companies over the last 12 months. And the goal is to find that technology, bring it into our company, and actually work with these startup companies to provide their content at scale. And so providing that platform and enabling that to happen. The other kind of thing that's changing is all of our clients, our customers, are expecting a digital experience. So we have 4 to 5 million of our customers on just using digital platforms. So everything from the mobile experience in retail to we have a mobile app that we just launched in April of this last year. And we have almost 2.5 million customers using that. And so the whole retail banking transformation is in flight or in process. Customers are not going to want to go into the branches for the historical experiences that they've had in the past. So almost 45% of our customers now only go into the branch one time a year. And that's going to be like 70% in a couple of years. So that whole kind of engagement, real-time access, how they're working with us, what they expect from us. They want to video live right now and either get investment advice or make payments real time, everything.
You know, the following isn't about Deutsche Bank necessarily, but the whole fintech proposition, it seems to me, as they start new businesses and raise money, is that banks aren't very good at dealing with customers. That's why we exist. Fair?
Yes. Yeah, I would say, you know, this is an industry that's going through massive transition. So, you know, whether it's the work with the regulators, it's the engagement model with our customers, the whole industry is going through massive transformation. Like no other industry. I've been in a couple of different industries, like no other industry I've worked in. So what we are trying to do is just face into, change that whole interaction experience with our customers and actually, you know, create more transparency, more real-time working together, helping them thrive and strive and really be the best companies and people they can be.
You know, I don't think we have time to discuss it this morning, but it occurs to me that everybody on the panel, with the exception of Marc, has to deal with this on the one hand, wanting to be more customer focused, and on the other hand, having large regulatory compliance issues in their business. And Bernard, thank you for your patience.
Oh, no.
Good job, Bernard.
I know that the Kaiser Permanente's goal is to put the patient at the center. It's sort of a nice line, but I know it also happens to be true. Could you talk about it, please?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about it, and thank you. You know, I think we're going through a major transformation in the healthcare industry, rightfully so. So I'm excited about that. You know, just right quick, if you think about it, we built a whole healthcare system on a couple of things. First of all, people started to live longer, and so the healthcare system was a fix-me system. So once we discovered how to deal with sanitation and processed foods, people started to live longer. they started to develop illnesses, and the healthcare system was invented to fix that problem. All right, so it's a fix-me system.
Yeah.
The second thing is, because we were all knowing, almighty, all everything, we built the entire healthcare industry where you had to come to us for everything. So we subjected you to come to our hospital, come into our medical office buildings, or wherever we wanted to practice, quote, medicine. And what we're working on now is blowing up that model, blowing up that concept, and transforming the industry. So we have been working on what I call maximizing the healthy life years of an individual. So that's about health, that's about prevention, that's about early detection, early diagnosis, and early treatment, to allow somebody to live as long as possible, as healthy as possible. The second thing is we're reversing that whole theory that you have to come to us for everything. And so we've invested billions in our technology platform, in which we call it a care anywhere strategy. And so just to show you how this is now working, last year, for the first time, we had over 110, let's say, million interactions between our physicians and our members. 52% of those interactions were virtual. So we surpassed physical visits last year with the use of the phone, video conferencing, telehealth medicine, kiosks, et cetera, where you have a relationship with your physician. You don't need to come in for everything. What we're now seeing is greater interaction with our members with the healthcare system. And so now I want to be better informed. And so they're asking very different questions. They're behaving more like a consumer. And medical information now becomes a critical part of how they're making life choices.
So as a patient/customer, this is music to my ears, and I'm sure it's music to everyone's ears. This is how a patient wants to be treated. Number one, how do you get paid in that scenario? Number two, why aren't your competitors doing that?
Yeah, the second thing that's wrong with the healthcare industry is that the financial engine of the healthcare industry is a fee-for-service engine. It says you get paid for volume, you get paid to do more. My model is based on a capitation payment. So I get a set amount of money to take care of 11 million people. So I get to invest in these kind of infrastructures to allow me to then have a big return back to the communities and back to my customers because I'm a not-for-profit organization. And so you build efficiencies in a model like that that is very different from the outside world. Many of my competitors are trying now to figure out how to replicate aspects of my model because I'm a totally integrated model. I own the hospitals or I buy a set of hospital services. We own our pharmacies, we own our technology. So it's a fully integrated model. Obviously, that's an expensive model to run to build hospitals. I mean, building a hospital is $1 billion. But we got to build hospitals for the small percentage of our members who would require hospital services. Eventually, I can see hospitals being in homes. That there's no need for everybody to come into a hospital setting. The future with technology is going to be that people could be at home. The future of technology is going to be that there are going to be medical wearable devices. And I've used the example where what everyone saw that happened to Hillary Clinton, in the future, somebody will be warned well ahead of time. And so it would augment what your human body is already telling you. She had to know she was getting dizzy. She had to feel lightheaded. But the medical device serves as another signal to say you're dehydrated or your blood pressure is going down.
Yep.
Here's what you need to do.
Now, of course, the patient has to listen to what they're being told to do.
Well, you combine this with some YouTube music, I think we may get somewhere.
Let me just, I'm curious what your view of the future is. So, you know, it annoys me to no end that my doctor, when I have a question, says, "Yeah, come in." I know he doesn't need to see me to answer that question. He knows he doesn't need to see me to answer that question. And you're saying that your doctors, in fact, don't need to see me to answer that question. Will there be a tipping point where the whole industry starts behaving this way?
Yes, when people like you come and join people
Kaiser,
like me,
yeah, I know.
Then, you know, my competition is going to go, okay, I get it now, I'm going to go that way. But before we get there, yeah, absolutely. you have to invest. You know, I'm very fortunate. I run a $65 billion company. So I have resources to invest in these kinds of platforms. But once you put it in place, for the customer, for the members, it means the world to them. And just right quick, the second piece is, well, a lot of people, and if you stop and think about this, it makes sense. The social determinants of health is what we talk about a lot inside of Kaiser Permanente. So about 40% of the determination of how healthy you're going to be is based on behavior. It's based on what you eat, how you exercise or not, how you handle stress, resilience, all those things. 30% is based on genetics. It's based on things that you're just born with and how you learn more about it to cope with it and understand how to deal with it. About 20% is based on place. We used to think it was all about race, meaning disparities of everything. It's also where you live. It dictates a lot of how healthy you have an opportunity to be. And health care is 10%. So 10%, in which we spend over $3 trillion, is focused in that arena because it's built on a fix-me system. About 20% of the population spends about 70% of the healthcare dollars in this country. And of the 70%, 90% is spent in the last 2 years of a person's life. So you have a whole financial system that's built for 2 years before you die. And that's what we want to turn around.
Well, we could easily spend the next 30 minutes talking about.
Yeah, let's send them off the stage.
Jean-Pascal, would you spend? I think your company would be the least familiar to the average consumer or even the average business person. Would you spend about a minute explaining what it is, and then I'm particularly interested in you then addressing the fact that your customers are always on, right? They always need your product 24 hours a day, and how you approach that.
Yeah. I'm interested by your bracelet because this morning, jet-lagged with a concert, I feel I need some surveillance and monitoring. But yeah, our company specializes in technologies for efficiency, energy efficiency, and operational efficiency. And we operate the systems in more than 25% of the buildings in the world, on 1/3 of the manufacturing, 1/3 of the data centers. So we may not be visible, but we support your life every day. We bring energy, and we bring the systems alive around you. So our customers are, for a part, building customers, real estate people, or people who run manufacturing. And what we see is that the constraints, for instance, on people in manufacturing are gigantic, right? They have to be competitive on a global scale. They have to be differentiated. There are more and more regulations when you operate in farm, in food and beverage, more and more regulation, and all of us want different products. So where before you were making one type of car for many, now everybody wants a different car, and you have to be able to assemble that at the latest moment. So for us, we've been in our industry, we are one of the leaders of industrial automation. We've been connecting objects to software for a long time. So the so-called Internet of Things, you would say, is not a revolution, it's more an evolution. But the big thing now is that those things used to be done on premises, right? So each machine was automated individually, each site was equipped individually. And what we've pioneered at Schneider is a capacity to bring those things together and connect them together for a further optimization. Which means that suddenly you can, if you own a real estate a set of properties, you can aggregate all your energy supply and negotiate it with all the utilities or suppliers. You can adapt your profile of consumption to the profile of supply. We are, for instance, for some companies, sourcing their green energy and making sure that 100% of their sourcing is green by matching their consumption together with the profile of supply. The big thing is that you go from an optimization which was machine by machine, side by side, and suddenly you can manage the whole company. But the consequences are more profound. When you were buying a machine before on an electrical system, it was isolated. It may be, there used to be, and there is still a lot of intelligence inside, but you didn't have a direct access. Now it's connected and delivering real-time information. The moment of truth when you go into those equipment is when an operator comes and try to optimize or solve a problem. So now the latest evolution is that everybody has a smartphone, a mobile phone, which is becoming your interface to the machine. And you come in front of a machine and you can really virtually see everything inside. And you can get all the data. Artificial intelligence will tell you where the problems are. In the world of yesterday, which is exactly 2 years ago, an operator spends 50% of her time trying to locate the problem. Okay? Today, they come in front of a pretty complex operation, and it recognizes the installation. It says the problem is in tank 1, in panel 2, third level, and by the way, the part to change is this one.
It's interesting how similar your businesses are, the two of you, right?
Yeah, well, for us, in our sector, what you described for Hillary Clinton is called predictive maintenance.
Yep.
It prevents you before you stop. Right?
Yeah.
But it's a pretty brutal world.
I'm interested, you joked that there was this change 2 years ago, but I'm interested, I assume it was a little further back that Schneider went to its customers and started saying, we've been selling you things for a long time now, and we still want to sell you things. But with those things, we'd like to sell you some information too, to make those things work. Can you describe, when that started and how that conversation went?
Well, it started with digitization, really, because when you enter in digitization of processes and you start to apply a lot of software and analytics, you need to understand the application. So we used to be doing standard products, and people were integrating them like blocks of Lego for their application. But we had to become experts in hospitals, in data centers, in wastewater. So that's an important point for personalization. It's not only just the digital world, but it forced us, and that was a great force, by the way, to complement what we are doing in the field of software, connectivity, smart objects, with thousands of people dedicated to application on a global scale. Schneider is operating our biggest region is Asia, the second one is North America. We are everywhere. We are in 100 countries, but we need people on the ground, because if a big company has a problem in Ghana, we need to send people to be able to resolve the issue. So it's not only about digital, you need people on the application that study together with a customer the pain point, and then they engineer together the solution. And then when it is operating, there are always crazy issues happening, because our world is full of surprises. And then you need people on spot to work together with the customer very closely to resolve the issue. So that movement, going from product to solution, was exactly a collateral consequence of going into digitization.
Which was how long ago?
And it's
30
a movement that, 10 years ago, we had probably 10% of our products connected. Today, it's 50% of our total turnover that we do connected, and we tripled size because of that evolution. It pushed us into a much higher value in direct contact with the customer. And we love it, because we discover so much together.
Sure. Marc, does this subject of the customer interest you at all?
I really don't know what you're talking about. No, I think that when you listen to these guys, incredible CEOs here, diversified industries, I think it represents kind of what's the shift that's going on. One way you could say it's all about the customer, and they're all getting closer to their customers and their communities, their partners. Another way you could say it is that trust has really become the most important value in their companies. It's a word that none of them use per se, but it's really an escalation of the word trust. Today, it doesn't really matter if you're in, building controls or healthcare or financial services, or even in your industry, Adam, trust is kind of surfaced to this incredible point where you can, takes you decades to get it and a moment to lose it. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of examples of that. I mean, on the front page of the paper this morning, when I was reading about Theranos, just laid off 350 people, I guess, today, and obviously it's a company in serious crisis, but it's a trust crisis, and you never want to get there. You want to stay in that zone where you have trust with your customers and your partners and with your community. And I think that the most important way to get there, and I know all these CEOs all very well and personally, is listening. And you have to get out there and listen to the customers. I told the story yesterday, but it's true that before I did my keynote yesterday, for the last 3 weeks, I've been on the road nonstop. I've met with more than 200 customers one-on-one. I had already done that keynote more than a dozen times, and in 8 cities in the United States, and that I was listening. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that I hear what they're saying, understand what that needs are, and I need to kind of pivot through this. And sometimes I feel like the role of the CEO has shifted, and I feel like I'm more like a beekeeper, and I have all the customers are there, and they're working, and they're doing their thing, and it's an incredible community, and I have to have trust with that community. They have to have trust with me. I certainly don't want to get stung, that when that happens, it's no fun for a CEO, but I'm just there to kind of help facilitate this incredible work that's happening. And I think that's one of the reasons that I love Dreamforce, because it kind of manifests itself in front of all of us so powerfully. And I think that's how the CEO's job is now. You're kind of becoming yes, you're a leader of your organization or of this entity, but the reality is it's really all about having this trusted relationship with this community. And if you can do that, and then, we're moving into this world of intelligence, where intelligence is becoming part of this, and everyone gave an example, and they're all thinking about how artificial intelligence is going to dramatically change their businesses, and in some cases they are, and in some cases we're just at the beginning of how artificial intelligence will change each one of these industries. We're about these kind of trusted, intelligent communities. And as we move to that new world, the CEO job is going to really shift and change, and the skills and the very nature of leadership of these job positions is going to shift, and it's being driven by the technology itself. So you got to be ready to step up as a CEO to have a different type of leadership skill.
Mm-hmm. And I want to shift to this subject of artificial intelligence, machine learning, the deep learning. The jargon is a little confusing, and maybe you could share what this is an important topic for 23andMe. Has there been a journey? Has your company shifted how it's approached this, or was that the goal from the beginning?
The goal, you mean the data or the?
The data, yeah. And has how you've approached the data changed over time?
The way we've approached the data has definitely not changed. From day one, my background was Wall Street, and I was investing in healthcare companies. And one of the things that I saw is you'd have these pharma companies run these clinical trials, and a phase 3 study could easily be $400 million. And you have this huge infrastructure that gets set up. You have all these doctors, patients come in and enroll, you have a hypothesis, you test it, and then at the end, you sort of see were you right or were you not right. And then they might, at the very end, say like, oh, well, we wish we had made it bigger, or we wish we had asked these additional questions. And so the idea for 23andMe in large part was, how do you just create millions and millions and millions of people in sort of real time, just constantly querying and collecting information, similar to how every other industry does this. There was a story about Target. When you walked in, there was a girl who went to Target, and based on her shopping patterns, they predicted that she was likely pregnant, and they sent home some pregnancy-related marketing materials, and her father was very upset. But lo and behold, it turned out that she, in fact, was pregnant. And as Bernard was saying, what we do want to do is actually be able to predict, hey, you, based on your behaviors, based on a watch that you're wearing, based on your genetics, you're 3 years away from being diabetic. You need to change X, Y, and Z. So the idea for 23andMe is that we need to collect all this information the same way every single other industry is collecting information, and be able to start to optimize and better understand that you're not really going to understand healthcare unless you actually have massive amounts of information. So we started from day one with this idea that we'll give you your genetic information, and then we'll just ask you to, contribute information, ask you questions about yourself, and ask you lifestyle. And I don't have the problem that pharma companies have when they have a big study, in that it's over at some point because I keep my customers engaged. And that's like going back to the first question, like we really see people as customers. It's not sort of a human subject, it's not a patient, it's a customer. And part of the customer experience, we find people love participating in research.
Yeah.
They love knowing, like the feedback loop of saying, like we just did a paper on depression where we had a few 100,000 people participate in a study where we found a number of genetic variants associated with depression, which is a horrible condition, often poorly treated. And the number of customers writing in saying, I feel so good that I gave data that contributed to this kind of finding. And so what we find is people really do want to contribute, and that we now have, over a million customers, over 400 million data points on them, and we can do research in a way that no one else can do. Like it's almost unheard of to have a clinical study or some kind of study of hundreds of thousands of individuals. And so the fact that we're able to do this, almost akin to a Google search, almost akin to saying, like, let's just run this analysis. Is this connected with this? Let's run an analysis.
And it's a perfect segue to financial services, Kim, in that you have so much data. You were at Boeing before, and Boeing has so much data. Will you explain how you synthesize it all, and what you try to extract from it and what you can't extract from it? Where are the pain points?
Yeah, so obvious sensitivity to privacy laws. So just being able to synthesize the data such that you always honor the privacy laws, extremely, extremely important. And so what we're doing is a couple of things. So one, on the topic of machine learning, artificial intelligence, is there are about 150 processes that run a bank. And many of these are customer interfacing processes. So how do you drive automation into those processes to reduce the cycle time of the process, improve the quality of the process, improve the customer experience? So trying to provide industrialization to banking is kind of one of the areas that we're working on. And big time, just I call it facts and data, understanding what's going on in these processes. And big industrial companies like Schneider and Boeing and other companies, they run their company by industrializing processes. So that's one area that we're working on. On the data side, so tons of data. Okay, so
I'd be concerned too much.
Yeah, well, it's trying to find value in the data. So how do we improve the customer experience? How do we change our go-to-market with products? How do we help to sense and respond to the customers before they actually know they need it or want it? And that's what we're working on. We've set up a data lab in Dublin. It's called The Hive. I did not define the name, thinking of bees. It was funny because it's like every time I get stung, I end up in the hospital. So something about the hive and bees didn't go well with me. But we have data scientists there, and it's all about problem solving around the customer through the data. So I've hired 50 data scientists, and it's just in the game, day in, day out, trying to change the customer experience. That's what we're working on.
Bernard, before we go, I want to switch gears. You've made the observation that companies have typically been divided into thinkers and doers, and that you don't think that's the way things are going to go going forward. Could you explain?
Yeah, if you look at historically how big companies were designed and this whole notion of, quote, management and hierarchies, it was at a point where information needed to pass from human to human, right? So you end up building a structure where you had the thinkers, the managers, the executives, the people that were defined as smart, if you will, and you had the doers, which are the workers. And I've always been intrigued by that model, and now with technology, now with the ability for the same information to go everywhere, you have all thinkers. And so I have 200,000 thinkers and doers, and we're working very hard to start to blend those two, where I want a frontline nurse to be thinking all the time about what else can happen to make this interaction better for my patient. And not to be saying, well, the protocol says I have to do it this way, and so therefore I have to do it this way. I want the environmental services worker to understand the same issues that I have, which Marc described, which is the trust. And so when he or she is working on the floor, they have to understand if they don't get all the germs and something happens, that will absolutely destroy the trusting relationship between a patient in a hospital bed and whether or not he or she feels safe in my hospital. And so we share that kind of data, that kind of information across the organization where people are both thinking and doing, because improvement is a continuous effort, not the big bang. We don't work from the big bang theory, although we enjoy it when it happens.
Yeah.
We work from every day is a new day, let's move forward with making more improvements.
And as you do your employee satisfaction surveys, do you get any pushback from people who say, you know what, I'm a doer. I just want to do.
Yeah.
Please don't get me confused with all this thinking stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're a microcosm of the greater society, right? So you have that in society today. But the fact of the matter is, some of the most critical individuals provides the best feedback for what we need to pay attention to, because they speak to the culture and the environment. And so the feedback is valuable. By the way, when we do our People Pulse survey every year, and we're doing it right now, we have almost 200,000 employees, and today we're getting it done, and we're at about an 81, 82% fill rate, meaning 82% of our workforce responds to a people survey every year.
Great.
So they like telling us things.
Yeah. We have a unique opportunity here in that we have practitioners of cutting edge technology. And Jean-Pascal, would you explain to everybody how Schneider is using virtual reality and augmented reality in your everyday business?
Yeah, well, that's actually something which is really useful for us. Well, virtual reality, take an example. You're going to send a crew on an oil platform, an oil rig. And those guys are going there for a round of 4 weeks. First time they go, and they've got to be operational day one, and they've got to be able to react to a leak, to a fire, to very critical issues. So we modelize the old systems, and you would train the people before they go there to the most critical session. That seems like, yeah, okay, why not? It's a big thing. When people are having very remote operations where they ship people out, you've got to be operational immediately, and it changes everything. Augmented reality for us means a lot. Most of the cases, people come have to react on events that they were not suspecting. You have the good news that analytics now enable more predictive maintenance, and I'll probably come back to that. But when you come to face the unsuspected, you have to react very fast in front of a variety of situations on devices. And when you point to that device with augmented reality, not only you can identify exactly what's going wrong, but you can send to the people the sequence of action that they have to take. I'm very attached to it for the safety of the people. So because we operate in very dangerous business, electricity is dangerous, so you don't want the people to open the wrong door at the wrong moment. So the exact execution of the right sequence is absolutely critical.
So when I listen to you talk, I think the airline industry has used, and the aviation industry has used flight simulation for years. And what you're describing is extending that sort of simulation activity out to many more industries. And my question is this, can you sort of give a sense of the scale that you're exploiting this technology? I mean, are we talking about 5 or 6 VR sets here, or
No,
what?
we are speaking about everything. I mean, the fact is that you go from your 3D design and you transport it immediately in the field of operation, while before those two worlds tended to be separate. So you take your 3D model and you bring into it the sensors, the actuators, and things, and immediately it becomes operational. And by the way, you feed it back to the design. If you see there are recurrent tension points, then it can bring direct inputs to your design teams. So it's a loop which is already operational, but it's pretty new there again. But there is one, you said for us the nightmare is big data, right? Because everybody is crazy about data. But the fact is that when you have to react fast, you want small data. You want relevant data. This is where AI is already and will be absolutely critical, where we help the operator not only by the selection of the right data, but also by the graphic interface to really act on the right points. Because the worst is that when all your screens are blinking, and when everything is going red, you know those movies with the bad guy behind the screens? Well, we do 40% of those screens in the world, okay? And that's us, right?
Yeah.
But what we have to help is people reacting to the right event.
Marc, as you know, we don't have a lot of time, but if you'll permit me, I'd like to ask you the final question, which is, why is it the job of business to make the world a better place? I thought the job of business was to make money.
Okay, well, mostly because things are pretty screwed up, and if we don't all do something together, we're all going to be in a lot of trouble. So, you know, I think at the end of the day that, you know, I certainly didn't get this when I went to business school, and I certainly didn't get this when I was working at Oracle. But I...
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that what I mean by that is that we're just at a different point in history. You know, we're at a point in history, and I know all these people very well, and I think they all agree that, you know, and I know a lot of people who are in the audience. And, you know, what I would say is very simply is that this world has a lot of challenges, and we all go to these conferences, events, we study. One of the common characteristic of every person in this panel, and probably everyone in this audience, is a lot of curiosity. People are really curious and interested in what is going on, and I think that we're all really curious and interested in what is going on with all the challenges in the world today. I mean, those could be environmental challenges, educational challenges, challenges with inequality, across the board. And you know, after a while, you're in business, you've worked, you have skills, you have leadership skills, great leadership skills, and you have the ability to do things. You can isolate yourself, compartmentalize yourself. You can kind of put yourself in a box and say, I'm only going to use those skills in that box. Or you can just say, hey, I'm going to have a more integrated life. You know what? I'm not going to live in a box. I'm going to have an integrated life, and my skills and what I do and my vision and the way I look at the world is actually going to be with everything I do. And I'm going to be a leader for everything. I'm going to be someone that makes the world a better place. Yes, I have a great job. Yes, we work in a great company. Yes, I have great friends. And together, we're going to make the world a little bit better. That's it. It's very simple. And I think that for each and every one of us, we can all do at least one thing to make the world better. Yesterday during the keynote, I said, because I strongly believe this, that right now public education is at a crisis. It has really blown my mind that these presidential debates, that the K-12 school system hasn't really come up as a major topic, you know, for our country. This is like our future. Our kids are our future. And I'll tell you how we're going to fix the public education system. It's not charter schools. It's none of the kind of innovation small schools. It's me and you who are going to walk down to the school, knock on the door, meet with the principal, which is the kind of manager leader of the school. We all have that understanding, and say, what can I do to help you? And they will have a list on their desk of things that they're waiting for the big system to come and give them. And they'll say, well, yeah, we need these 3 or 4 or 5 things. And you'll say, you know what? I think I could get one of those, and I know that person might be able to help there. And you'd be hugely surprised the dramatic impact you can have in your community and in your life by just adopting one public school. And anyway, that's my big message of the show. So thanks for giving me that opportunity.
And Marc, thank you for putting such a nice, neat bow on what was such an interesting conversation. So please join me in thanking Jean-Pascal, Bernard, Kim, and Anne. Thank you.
Thank you.